Hello, it's Mr. Miller here. I thought we could go over just a little bit on the appeasement controversy from 1937 to 1939. So just a little bit of context. Over here we have Stanley Baldwin, who was in charge of Britain before 1937. We obviously know quite a lot about him. Very famous for saying the bomber will never get through. And he was in charge when Hitler reoccupied the Rhineland in 1936, which was originally intended to be demilitarised, so no troops anywhere near France, and this gave France a little bit extra protection. Neville Chamberlain here, who had been Stanley Baldwin's Chancellor and had been a very powerful figure in the cabinet, took over in May 1937. Other little things to perhaps consider was obviously things like Stalin's purges. So Stalin had killed his chief enemies as well as purging most of his military. So Chamberlain knew about this and was clearly concerned about sort of doing a deal with him. Equally, Britain's interests were threatened over in the Far East by Japan, who were a growing world power. They had signed a deal with Germany in 1936, and obviously we know that Italy joins that in 1937. Bad news was sort of on the home front as well. This guy here, Inskip, he said that really Britain should prioritise the RAF and the Navy, so the army was in no real state to fight because it had been underfunded for a long time. So this guy here is Anthony Eden. He was the Foreign Secretary at the start of Neville Chamberlain's premiership, but he didn't really fit in particularly well with Chamberlain's policy. Chamberlain wanted to do his own thing, so he was replaced by Halifax. This was in 1938 in February. Unfortunately for Halifax, a month after he took over, there was the Anschluss, which means union between Austria and Germany. You can see some pictures here. They're opening up the border, the guards here, and you've got these adoring young women with the nice German soldier there. So the Germans in Austria are delighted that they're part of one country again. The Austrians just as much as the Germans did. Obviously not everyone agreed with Chamberlain's policy. Very famously you had the cartoonist David Lowe, who produced lots of cartoons very critical of appeasement and of giving Germany what they wanted. Anthony Eden soon came into that camp as well, and obviously we know that Churchill was very reluctant to appease Germany at all and was concerned about its growing strength. This guy here, Lord Runciman, his mission after the Anschluss was to consider what was going to happen in Czechoslovakia. Obviously in Czechoslovakia there had been lots of German speakers because they used to be part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and obviously they wanted to do the same as the Austrians and go back. This guy here is Lord Runciman. He went over to Czechoslovakia in August 1938 to see if he could do some sort of deal with the Czechs over the Sudetenland problem. He came back from the meeting and he gave a very negative opinion of Beneš, the Czech leader, to Chamberlain, and sort of set him on this role of not wanting to do a deal with these Czechs who were not particularly amenable or useful to Britain. This guy here has gone down quite badly in history, Neville Henderson. He was the Foreign Secretary to Germany, so he quite often gave very positive reports about the Nazis, and obviously Chamberlain had to sort of, in some ways, respect his opinion as the person on the ground in Germany. Here he is with Hermann Göring, who many people thought was a nice Nazi, somebody that you could do business with. So there again, there's Neville Henderson with Chamberlain. We have here Generalissime, and he had issued a report which was quite interesting for Chamberlain because it said that Britain wouldn't be ready for a war for another 6 to 12 months. He emphasised 12 months would be an ideal time if Britain had to go to war. So that was a consideration, General Ismay's 6 to 12 months. So, there was obviously concern about what was going to happen to the Sudetenland, and Chamberlain took it on himself. He didn't send Lord Halifax, he went himself to meet Hitler here. Nice picture at the Berchtesgaden. He felt that he'd understood Hitler and he could do a deal with him, and he went back to the cabinet to negotiate terms for the Sudetenland to be given up. He then went back again to Bad Godesberg, the second of the meetings, and Chamberlain was surprised that Hitler had upped his demands. Hitler had understood what Chamberlain was trying to do. So Chamberlain went back home expecting war. However, Mussolini suggested that all the powers meet, and Plan Z was to go back to Munich, and you can see them all here, looking very happy. They did a deal, so we've got Mussolini here, Hitler, and there's Chamberlain there. At this point, we have here, obviously, the Sudetenland, around here, where the German speakers are, and this is the land where the Czechs had, the Czech speakers. There's Prague, the capital, and lots of people at the time thought it was an artificial state, because it hadn't existed before. It was created out of the old Austro-Hungarian Empire, and there was lots of different speakers in it, so not one dominant sort of group of people. The Czechs were probably the biggest, but there was a lot of minorities, and obviously 3 million of those were German. Okay, so it just fits around here. Okay, this is Austria. So, the deal was done, and Chamberlain comes back as a hero. He has brought back this thing that he calls his signature with his deal with Hitler, never to go to war, later called the scrap of paper because of its value, or lack of value. Okay, and we have here the new Czech state was guaranteed. Okay. The Soviet Union in particular, and Stalin here, was very concerned because he felt that the French and the British were trying to direct. So we have here a cartoon of the two of them, Daladier and Chamberlain, trying to direct the Nazi war machine with the meat cleaver and the guns towards Russia, CCCP. And we have the Russian cartoon here. You've got the capitalists and the British people here with the top hats serving up to the wolf, the German wolf here, Czechoslovakia. Kristallnacht followed soon afterwards, where the Jews were attacked by Nazis, and this provoked some outrage, and this is when a lot of people did turn against Adolf Hitler's Germany and felt that they were becoming increasingly unreasonable. So, in January 1939, you have here these happy people. This guy looks miserable as sin. We know this guy's Halifax. This is the Italian foreign minister, Mussolini, and this is Chamberlain. And they went in January 1939 to try and do a deal with Mussolini, see if they could get him back into some sort of Strasser front. But it failed because they had nothing to offer him. The Germans could offer him more. So, after this, Halifax realises, as Foreign Secretary, he has to take a tougher line, that they can't keep appeasing Germany, and it begins to force Chamberlain here to try and have a bit more backbone and prepare for war in case it comes. This came quickly. In March, Hitler marched into Prague, the capital of the Czech lands, in March. For the first time, this was something that wasn't acceptable because it wasn't anything to do with self-determination. This was clearly territorial grabs because there was no Germans left in Czechoslovakia in any great numbers. Soon afterwards, Hitler seizes this port of Memel in Lithuania, so he takes that off the Lithuanians, and he starts to talk about wanting to take back Danzig, which was 90% German, but it was kept under control of the League of Nations to allow Poland access to the sea and a port, and Hitler was unhappy that all these Germans couldn't be part of Germany, so that's just there. So, in response to this tougher line was the Polish Guarantee. So this was issued in March 1939, and you can see here the Polish corridor is splitting this part of Germany from the main big chunk that it's got, and Hitler wants these two reunited. He's helped a lot by the Pact of Steel, where Mussolini and Hitler agree to go to war to help each other if they're in a war situation. And finally, we have the sort of the unthinkable, really. We have Stalin here with the Foreign Minister of Germany, von Ribbentrop, and they do a deal that they will have no war against each other, and this opens up the potential then to invade Poland. David Low here is quite critical of it, saying that they are going to kill each other. How long is the honeymoon going to last? But the reality is, Russia was now not going to help Britain or France in the event of war. And that clearly happened. The Germans took half of Poland, and the Russians took the other half. And you can see the extent there of sort of German-controlled or Allied lands. There's Albania there as well. Okay, so that was on September the 1st, and interestingly, it seems to take a while. It takes 2 days for Chamberlain to declare war on Germany, and there's been some questions about why did it take him 2 days to put together the Polish guarantee that he'd promised. So, I hope it's been helpful. You can look at it again if you want. Apologies for my voice, it's a bit croaky today. But yeah, ask any questions if you're unsure.